What's up, everybody? Today we're going to be taking a look at the Atal'Dazar dungeon coming in Battle for Azeroth. My name is Josh Allen, aka Community Manager Lore, joined here by Scott Gordon, one of the members of the Encounter team. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Blizzard on the WoW development team?
Hey everyone, this is Scott Gordon. I do a lot of the planning for dungeons and figuring out what the bosses are, and then provide oversight for what the abilities should be and stuff like that.
Excellent. So, like we said, we're looking through the Atal'Dazar dungeon here. Just looking at a group working their way through the dungeon. Obviously, occasionally standing in things. That's not ideal. Green stuff is bad in this dungeon. That's something I'm picking up on so far. Yep. So, what can you tell us a little bit about what we're going through here right now? Why are there skeletons and stuff around inside this dungeon?
Sure. Atal'Dazar is actually the resting place of the very first leader of the Zandalari trolls. It's a very holy place. It's we refer to it as the City of Gold. Everything's very ornate. It's supposed to be kind of a sacred place for the Zandalari trolls. And as you're going through the questing experience, you find out that someone's doing some bad stuff here. They're resurrecting the dead, and they're kind of defiling this place. And ultimately, their goal is to raise Dazar himself, the first leader of the trolls, and use him as like a powerful avatar to fight against you.
Okay, cool. So it's almost in a way kind of a callback to the old like Zul'Gurub days where someone was trying to raise Hakkar
exactly.
and stuff like that. That's super cool. So we're coming in here kind of to purify this troll temple.
Yeah. So these berserker guys that you see here are actually, they were killed in the questing experience, and they were resurrected by the last boss of this part of the dungeon called Yasma. And they kind of have this decay that falls off of them, and it leaves the area denial on the ground that players have to avoid.
Yeah, don't stand in the green stuff appears to be the order of business for this section of things.
Yeah.
And that guy is obviously knocking a whole lot of green stuff around. Now there's two of them, so excellent. Yep. We'll see how this group is able to handle that, I suppose.
There's just going to be a lot on the ground. You actually see this in the boss too, so this is trying to teach you that green stuff is bad, in case you weren't aware of that already in World of Warcraft.
Swirly green things, generally worth avoiding. Looks like they managed to get through that fairly well. And now we're on to the first boss. So this is Volkal, correct?
Yep. So this is Volkal. You actually encounter him during the questing experience, and he's alive, and you kill him, and then Yasma's taken these little totems on the side there that kind of like are reanimating him and keeping him alive. So you actually can't kill him until those totems are killed. They're constantly healing him back to full every second.
Okay, so that's why we're seeing them sort of running around and attacking these totems at the side, is because they actually need to take those out before they can attack him. He certainly seems to be jumping around and throwing a lot of his own green stuff around the room.
Yeah, he provides a lot of distraction while you're trying to kill these totems. He like picks a random player and jumps on them and knocks them back and that kind of stuff. He's actually not tanked in that phase.
Okay, so he's just sort of running around the entire time.
Yeah.
Looks like we moved on to a second phase now, and now he's spreading a lot of that sort of green ooze around to not stand in.
Yep. So he's now that we've killed all the totems, he's decaying very rapidly, and this is the mechanic I was talking about during the trash. And you kind of have to use the play space smartly so that you have enough room to actually kill him without having to stand in it.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that's really despawning, so
Yep.
Kind of a race against the clock to be able to kill him before you run out of space. It's a pretty basic dungeon mechanic that we've seen in a lot of different places, but I mean, this is the first boss of the dungeon.
Yeah.
So now we're moving on through another area here. Looks like we've got some living trolls now to deal with, as well as, I believe those are skeletons holding, yeah, it looks like they are skeletons holding up some shields there.
Yep. So this place, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very sacred place for the trolls, and there's like a group of guardians that were left behind to defend this place. And when Yasma and her leader came through here, they kind of defiled a lot of those things and resurrected them, and they still are kind of charged with defending this place, but we have that undead element to it. And as we progress through the dungeon here, we'll start to see that some of them are actually still alive, and they're trying to keep you out as well to avoid more of this bad stuff happening to the place.
And of course, as a troll dungeon, we do have to have some dinosaurs as well as some fears in here. You can see the party getting feared around there for a second, and a bunch of little guys just chomping away at the tank, and occasionally it looks like chomping away at some party members as well. So something to keep track of there.
We got a lot of new great models for the dinosaurs, so of course trolls and dinosaurs work together really well, and we wanted to showcase some of those new creatures.
Yeah, and thinking about the art for a second, just looking at the architecture we're seeing in the background, this is some really, really impressive stuff, honestly, that the art team has put together. What sort of influence would you say were pulled into creating the art style and the appearance of this dungeon?
So this is a very pristine troll area. So we looked at a lot of the older troll like POIs that we had before, like Zolomon and Zul'Gurub, and a lot of those are in ruin. And we kind of said like, well, what do those look like if they weren't in ruin anymore? If they were very ornate, pretty. We think of like Mayan architecture, and we always refer to like El Dorado, the city of gold kind of thing.
That's really cool. Yeah, so it's kind of like previously, like you said, we've always seen things sort of in ruin. Like you think back to even the dungeon in Tanarus, the name of which is escaping me at this moment in time. Zul'Farrak, yes. And how that's just sort of like the sands have swept through and kind of eroded and destroyed everything. And now here we're seeing like, no, this is such a sacred place to the trolls that they've kept it pristine after all these years.
Yeah, the trolls are the oldest race on Azeroth, so they have a lot of civilizations that have risen and fallen, and this is one that's kind of still intact. And you'll see a lot of that in the expansion.
Awesome. Always up for a little bit more troll lore. Being, of course, a troll myself, even if not necessarily in-game. Definitely a troll IRL.
I'm disappointed.
So we're clearing through this area here with all these little dinosaurs. And we appear to be heading down some stairs here, going down to a lower section of the dungeon.
Yep. So the leader of the trolls that I mentioned earlier, Dazar, he had a mount that he rode into battle. And what better mount than a giant T-Rex?
Of course.
So that giant T-Rex was Razan, and his remains were left here. And when the corruption swept through this place, he was resurrected. And now we have an undead T-Rex, which is like twice as scary, right?
What's more scary than a T-Rex? How about an undead T-Rex with like an actual coffin attached to it?
Yeah. The art team did a really great job with this. We said we want an undead T-Rex, like he's like mummified, and they're like, we got you. We don't need any other information. We'll figure this out. And they did a really great job.
We've been waiting for you to ask. Yeah, so it looks like he's got, as a T-Rex, obviously he's got a fear. Of course he's going to have a fear. Looks like there's, I'm not seeing any right this second, but looks like, oh, there we go. A couple of them are spawning in. Yeah, a couple of extra little undead, like raptors or something that are sneaking up on the tank. Wow, there's a lot of them sneaking up on the tank right there.
Yeah, so this whole kind of bone pit is filled with these little skeletons, or raptor skeletons, and if you ever walk over them or get near them, they resurrect, they've been disturbed, and they start attacking you.
Looks like our hunter friend just got eaten by the T-Rex as well.
Yeah, so the boss has a bunch of mechanics that kind of try to reinforce that initial idea of there's these bone piles over the place that you don't want to disturb. So he has fears that can push you into them, and he fixates on a person and tries to chase them.
Okay, so you're kind of like, you're getting feared and you're trying to stay away from the bone piles normally in case you get feared into them, and you're also, if he fixates on you, you actually need to be running away from him and trying to avoid the bone piles on the ground.
Exactly. You have to run the gauntlet and not get eaten.
Excellent. So it seems that our group here has sort of got the gist of it at this point. We even see the tank breaking a fear proactively there. Very nicely done.
He's a good player.
Yeah. He seems to be standing in something there that may have been just a trinket effect or something.
I think he actually might have gotten eaten right there.
Oh, okay. And there we go.
Yeah. So that's the second boss of Atal'Dazar.
Cool. And now I believe, yeah, we're going to go ahead and head up back out of that bone pit area and start moving on to the third boss. And these first three bosses, they can be done in any order, right? There's no set order to them.
So we'll see this a little later on, but this first part of the dungeon is choose your own adventure, and then the temple starts to unlock kind of like Indiana Jones style. We had a lot of fun with that idea of like traps and different mechanisms that would activate as you progress through the dungeon.
Yeah, sort of like a Temple of Doom sort of a approach of what if there were just a bunch of traps and stuff in here and weird mechanisms to deal with. And I think we are going to see some of that here in just a second. Of course, we do have to clear through the rest of these little dinosaurs first. And now we can see even more of those defenders that you were talking about earlier, the living trolls that were left behind to keep the place sacred.
Yeah, so this is the first time the players are encountering these in the route that they took through the dungeon. So these are the sacred guard that were left behind to defend the tomb of the first king for all time. And here we get to see some of those traps that I was mentioning, like the temple is defending itself.
Yeah, big flame jets here. You have to sort of run the gauntlet through. Don't get too close.
He realized what he's doing. Oh,
yeah. I feel like that's a mistake that you only make once. Walk directly into the fire and then go, maybe not again.
so here we are with the third boss in the route that these players took. This is Priestess Alunza, and she's actually uncorrupted and still trying to defend this place. Like right now, she's trying to draw the magical energy out of these pools of gold that are on the side that have been corrupted.
And that's her in the back over there. They're fighting a trash pack that's in front of it right now, but she's just sort of waiting in the back there. So as they continue to work through her last guard, then we'll be moving on to fight her. So if she's uncorrupted and guarding this place, why do we need to fight her?
The guardians of this place are kind of charged with keep everyone out. Like
Okay.
the current Zandalari trolls don't come up here. Obviously, the players would not be welcome up here. It's very holy ground. You're just defiling the place by being here. Ultimately, your intentions are good. You're trying to stop one of the bad guys that you encountered in the quest experience.
Okay. So in order to get to the end boss, which is kind of the reason we're here, we have to go through everybody else first. Now, is she an actual gold troll?
Yep.
Interesting.
So I mentioned earlier we call this place the City of Gold, and you see it in a lot of the architecture, and then you see it here with this boss where she has the gold-colored skin, and she actually uses kind of a gold magic. There's these pools of gold on the side. You can't really see them.
You can kind of see one in the back there, I think, that the blood puddles are sort of falling out of.
Yeah. So she's trying to cleanse that gold. She's trying to get the corruption out of it.
I see.
And that's what the slimes are that are moving across the play space.
So those are actually her, like, in the process of cleansing that gold, they're actually being forced out of that.
Yep.
That's cool.
And she does this mechanic here where she kind of siphons life off of people, and if they have that corrupted blood in them, it hurts her rather than heals her.
Okay. So there's... we kind of just saw it there a second ago. There was a little red blood puddle on the floor. I think we've seen a couple of those before as well. Now here she's going to do it again, and we'll see. Okay, so they all got the red beam that time.
Yeah, so that means everyone did it right. When it was the gold beam, it was actually healing her, so it made it harder to kill the boss.
Okay. Get the red beam, kill the boss. Seems straightforward enough.
And now that we've defeated all the defenders...
Head back through the fire and the flames here. One
guy
person gets
left
left behind.
And
I think that's their healer too,
yeah,
so
he was
maybe
never
everybody
seen
else should
again.
hold up.
So here we are, now that we've defeated all of the bosses, we activate one of those mechanics I was talking about where the temple kind of comes to life.
That is a really cool effect. Like that was a waterfall before, and now it's just turning into some stairs for the players to run up. And there's spiders.
Yep.
Excellent.
You gotta have spiders.
Obviously.
So the last boss of this dungeon, Yasma, used to be a good guy. She was part of what's called the Zanchuli Council, and her Loa was the Spider Loa. And during the questing experience, she actually consumes that Spider Loa and becomes kind of this hybrid, half spider, half troll. And that's why you see these spiders here as part of one of her mechanics.
I see. Yeah, that's if I'm remembering correctly, that's kind of similar to what we saw in Zuldrak during Wrath of the Lich King ages ago. There was a couple of trolls there that had tried to take the powers of their Loa, and it didn't turn out too well for them in the long run.
Never does. I'm not really sure why they do it.
They just keep trying, and it doesn't work. Definition of insanity. So now we're fighting the last boss here. I just saw a character get some sort of debuff and run away.
Yep, so she tries to draw the spirits out of the players, and when she does that, she marks the player, and you can see that the spirit's actually moving towards her.
I see.
And if you don't defeat it in time, it gives her a big damage boost and makes it a lot harder to beat her.
Okay, so pretty standard sort of. You get the debuff, run away from the boss, and then kill the ad when it comes out. Which is kind of cool for a dungeon boss. It's sort of combining a few different mechanics that you often see even inside raids. So that's a cool way to sort of teach players. This is how you handle mechanics like this.
And the kind of the wrench that gets thrown in this is the little spiders are spawning constantly all over the area, and if you ever step in them, they kind of pop and do a bunch of damage, and they leave the area denial.
Okay, so Similar to the first boss that we saw, Zul'Kal, you're going to be slowly running out of space as the fight goes on.
Yep.
It looks like this group is doing pretty well at dealing with this so far. There are quite a few puddles stacking up at this point.
They're running out of space pretty quick.
Yeah. Oh, but there we go. They have managed to defeat Yasma at this point. So that's the end of the Atal'Dazar dungeon. Thanks so much for hanging out and talking through this with us.
Anytime.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys. We'll see you later.